Jake Morrison gripped the control panel as sparks flew from the damaged systems around him. His ship New Horizons shook violently as the engine coughed and died completely. The red warning lights painted everything in an angry glow while alarms screamed through the small cockpit. Jake had been flying supply runs between human colonies for 15 years, but had never seen damage this bad. "Come on, baby, just hold together a little longer," Jake whispered to his ship as he searched his star charts for the nearest safe harbor. The computer showed nothing but empty space in every direction. His fuel was running low and life support would fail within hours. Then his sensors picked up something unexpected. A planet that appeared on no official charts. The world hung before him like a blue and silver jewel against the black of space. Beautiful crystalline structures covered its surface, catching and reflecting starlight in ways that made the entire planet seem to glow. But as Jake moved closer, his ship's computer began screaming warnings about ancient beacon signals surrounding the world. "Warning, warning, forbidden zone detected," the D computer announced in its calm mechanical voice. "Multiple alien languages detected in warning signals. Landing prohibited by Galactic Treaty 774 Alpha." Jake laughed bitterly. Galactic treaties meant nothing when you were about to die in the vacuum of space. His ship had maybe 20 minutes of power left, and this mysterious world was his only chance. He had no choice but to break whatever rules existed here. As New Horizons broke through the atmosphere, Jake got his first close look at the planet's surface. The crystalline structures were massive, some reaching kilometers into the sky. They formed perfect geometric patterns across the landscape, like someone had built a giant circuit board. The crystals pulsed with soft blue light that seemed to follow a rhythm Jake could not understand. The ship hit the surface harder than Jake would have liked. Metal groaned, and several more systems failed as New Horizons slid across the crystalline ground before finally coming to a stop. Jake sat in his pilot chair for a moment, breathing hard and grateful to be alive. Through the viewports he could see the alien structures stretching to the horizon in every direction. The moment Jake's boots touched the planet's surface, everything changed. The blue light in the crystals began pulsing faster, matching the rhythm of Jake's heartbeat. A low humming sound filled the air, growing stronger with each passing second. Jake felt the vibration in his bones as the entire world seemed to wake up around him. Far across the galaxy, in the great council chambers of the Galactic Alliance, ancient monitoring systems that had been silent for 10,000 years suddenly blazed to life. Admiral Zethkri of the Valdrani Empire stared at the readings in shock while Counselor Mirthak of the Crystalline Collective's crystal body changed colors rapidly in distress. "The Nexus world has been activated," Mirthak said, his voice creating musical tones that the translation devices converted to words. "After all these millennia, someone has awakened the predecessor technology." Admiral Zethkri's scaled face showed concern as she studied the energy readings. This should be impossible. The warning beacons around that world would stop any known species from landing. What kind of being would ignore such clear warnings? Back on the Forbidden Planet, Jake had no idea his simple landing had triggered alerts across 12 different star systems. He was too busy trying to figure out how to repair his ship's engine. The crystalline ground beneath his feet continued to pulse with that strange blue light, and Jake noticed the pattern seemed to be spreading outward from where he stood. As Jake worked on his ship, he began to hear something impossible, voices speaking in his own language. They seemed to come from the crystal structures themselves, whispered words that he could barely understand. The voices spoke of waiting and watching, of a great test that would determine the fate of the galaxy itself. "Who's there?" Jake called out, but only his own echo answered him. The whispering continued, growing clearer as the hours passed. Jake began to understand that the voices were not speaking to him, but about him. They called him the Catalyst, the one who would either save or destroy everything. As Jake continued his repairs, more systems across the galaxy began to activate. On the edge of human space, Captain Lisa Chen watched in amazement as her long-range sensors detected massive energy signatures appearing in previously empty regions of space. Ancient space stations, dead for millennia, were powering up one by one. "This is impossible," Lisa said to her science officer. These readings suggest technology far beyond anything we've ever seen. It's like the entire galaxy is waking up. Jake finally managed to get his ship's basic systems working again, but the engine would need parts he did not have. He was stranded on this forbidden world with only emergency rations and a growing sense that his presence here was causing something monumental to happen across the stars. The crystal structures around his landing site had grown brighter throughout the day. As night fell, Jake realized the entire landscape was now glowing with that pulsing blue light. The rhythm had synchronized perfectly with his heartbeat, as if the planet itself was adapting to his presence. In the council chambers, emergency sessions were being called as reports flooded in from across the galaxy. Predecessor technology, dormant since the fall of the greatest civilization the galaxy had ever known, was reactivating everywhere. The implications terrified the established powers who had maintained galactic order for thousands of years. "Send a fleet to the Nexus world immediately," Admiral Zethkri commanded. "Whatever has awakened the predecessor systems must be contained before it can spread further." Jake spent his first night on the planet listening to the whispered voices that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere. They spoke of the predecessors, the vanished race that had once ruled the stars. They told of a great plan, a test designed to find a species worthy of inheriting their vast legacy. As Jake finally fell asleep in his damaged ship, the crystal structures around him pulsed in harmony with his dreams. Across the galaxy, ancient machines continued to wake from their long slumber, responding to signals they had waited 10,000 years to receive. The human who had stepped on a forbidden world had indeed set forces in motion that would change the course of galactic history forever. Jake woke to find his ship surrounded by a forest of new crystal growths that had emerged from the ground during the night. The structures reached toward his ship like fingers, their blue glow now warm and welcoming rather than strange and alien. When Jake stepped outside, the crystals chimed softly, creating a melody that reminded him of wind through trees back on Earth. The whispered voices from the night before had become clearer, speaking directly into Jake's mind rather than from the air around him. They told him stories of the predecessors, a race that had achieved perfect harmony between technology and consciousness before choosing to transcend physical existence entirely. "You are the one we have waited for," the voices said. "Your species carries the pattern we designed our legacy to recognize. Emotional complexity paired with adaptive intelligence, the capacity for both creation and destruction, guided by conscience rather than instinct." As Jake explored the growing crystal formations, his every emotion seemed to trigger new responses from the planet. When he felt curious, new passages opened in the crystal structures. When he experienced wonder, the formations grew more elaborate and beautiful. When doubt crept into his mind, the crystals dimmed until his confidence returned. Meanwhile, across human space, Dr. Amy Rodriguez stared at readings that challenged everything she thought she knew about physics. Massive technological artifacts had appeared overnight in orbit around Earth, Mars, and the outer colonies. The structures defied easy explanation, composed of materials that seemed to exist partially outside normal space-time. "The energy signatures are impossible," Amy told her research team. "These artifacts are drawing power from sources we can't even detect, let alone understand. But here's the strangest part. They're only responding to human neural patterns." Captain Lisa Chen received an urgent communication from Earth Command as her ship approached one of the mysterious artifacts near the Jupiter mining stations. The structure was kilometers long, covered in the same crystalline patterns that Jake was discovering on the Forbidden World. "All human vessels are to maintain safe distances from the artifacts," the message stated. "However, preliminary scans suggest they pose no threat and may actually be offering technological data to anyone who approaches." Lisa decided to risk a closer approach. The moment her ship came within scanning range of the artifact, her computers were flooded with information. Star charts showing faster-than-light travel routes that cut journey times by 90%. Energy generation techniques that could power entire worlds with devices the size of a small building. Medical knowledge that could extend human lifespans by centuries. Back on the Forbidden Planet, Jake was experiencing visions that felt more real than his actual surroundings. He saw the rise and fall of a dozen galactic civilizations, each achieving great heights before stagnating and declining. The predecessors had watched this cycle repeat for millions of years before realizing that no existing species possessed the right combination of traits to break the pattern. We designed our technology to remain dormant until the catalyst species emerged, the voices explained. A species that values growth over stability, exploration over security, change over tradition, a species willing to take risks that others consider foolish. The crystal formations around Jake's ship had grown into elaborate structures that seemed to serve as both laboratory and library. When Jake touched certain crystals, information flowed directly into his mind. He learned about energy manipulation, consciousness transfer, and technologies that could reshape matter at the molecular level. Dr. Rodriguez and her team made breakthrough after breakthrough as they studied the artifacts in human space. The alien technology was teaching them, patiently guiding human understanding toward concepts that had taken the predecessors millions of years to develop. But the learning process was accelerating, with human scientists grasping advanced principles in days rather than decades. It's like the technology is designed specifically for human minds, Amy reported to Earth Command. The information is presented in ways that match human learning patterns and cognitive structures, almost as if whoever built these artifacts studied our species before we even achieved spaceflight. In the great council chambers of the Galactic Alliance, panic was setting in as reports continued to pour in from across known space. Admiral Zethkri received confirmation that predecessor technology was activating in hundreds of star systems, all responding to the same unknown signal. The energy readings are all pointing back to the Nexus world, reported Intelligence Commander Nashatel. Whatever landed there has triggered a cascade reaction across every piece of predecessor technology in the galaxy. Counselor Mirthax's crystalline body flickered with worried colors as he shared historical data with the Council. Our ancient records speak of the predecessors' final message before they transcended. They said they would leave their legacy for a species they called the Catalyst, one that would either unite the galaxy in a new golden age or destroy it entirely. Jake continued to learn from the crystal formations, unaware that his presence on the Forbidden World was causing upheaval across the galaxy. The planet was teaching him about galactic history, showing him how the current alliance of species had maintained peace through rigid control and unchanging traditions for thousands of years. Stability without growth leads to stagnation, the voices explained. Our technology was designed to force change, to prevent civilizations from becoming trapped in cycles of decline. But such power requires wisdom to guide it. The visions showed Jake what would happen if humans misused the predecessor legacy. He saw worlds consumed by runaway technology, species driven to extinction by their own creations, entire star systems reduced to lifeless waste. But he also saw the alternative, a galaxy where all species work together, sharing knowledge and exploring the universe as partners rather than competitors. Captain Lisa Chen established communication with Earth Command as more human ships approached the mysterious artifacts. Each vessel that made contact received the same flood of technological information, but also the same warning that came with it. The technology would only remain active as long as humanity proved worthy of the responsibility it represented. The artifacts are evaluating us, Lisa reported. Every decision we make, every way we choose to use this new knowledge is being monitored and judged. We're being tested to determine if we're ready for this level of power. Dr. Rodriguez made a disturbing discovery as she analyzed the data patterns from the artifacts. The technology was designed to shut down automatically if the recipient species showed signs of developing aggressive or destructive tendencies. Previous civilizations had apparently failed this test, losing access to predecessor knowledge when they tried to use it for conquest or domination. On the Forbidden World, Jake felt the weight of his species' future pressing down on him. The crystal formations had grown into a vast complex that surrounded his ship completely. He could sense that somewhere across the galaxy, other humans were encountering the same technology and facing the same test. Your species stands at a crossroads, the voices told him. The power we offer can elevate humanity to guardianship of the galaxy or corrupt you into its destroyers. The choice you make in the coming days will determine not just your fate, but the fate of every species in known space. As Jake settled in for his second night on the planet, he realized that his accidental landing had triggered something far greater than he could have imagined. Humanity was being offered the chance to inherit the greatest technological legacy in galactic history, but only if they could prove themselves worthy of the responsibility that came with it. The massive Galactic Alliance fleet dropped out of hyperspace around the Forbidden World, like a storm cloud blotting out the stars. Admiral Zethkri stood on the bridge of her flagship, studying the planet's surface where energy readings showed impossible levels of predecessor activity. Beside her, Counselor Mirthak's crystalline form pulsed with anxious colors. "The entire planet has become active," the science officer reported. "Energy levels are off our instruments. Whatever is down there has awakened technology we didn't know existed." Jake watched the alien ships arrive through the viewing port of his damaged vessel. The crystal formations around his ship had grown into towering spires that reached toward the sky like a cathedral of living light. The whispered voices in his mind grew urgent as the alien fleet took position in orbit above. "They come in fear," the voices told him. "Your species represents change, and change terrifies those who have grown comfortable with stagnation. They will demand your surrender, not understanding that the choice is no longer theirs to make." Admiral Zethkri opened a communication channel to the planet's surface, her translator converting her words into standard galactic speech. "Unknown vessel on the Nexus world, you have violated the most sacred prohibition in galactic law. Surrender immediately and prepare for extraction." Jake activated his ship's communication system, surprised to find it working better than it had in years. The crystal formations had somehow repaired and enhanced his equipment. "This is Captain Jake Morrison of the human ship New Horizons. I'm here because of engine failure, not by choice. I have no intention of surrendering to anyone." The response sent shockwaves through the alien fleet. A human, one of the species that had barely achieved interstellar travel, was defying the combined might of the Galactic Alliance. But when Admiral Zethkri ordered her weapons to target the human ship, something impossible happened. Every system on her vessel shut down. "Weapons offline," her tactical officer reported in confusion. "Engines offline. Life support switching to emergency power. All our technology is failing." The same phenomenon occurred across the entire fleet. Hundreds of alien warships found themselves helpless as their most advanced technology simply stopped working. Only basic life support remained functional, just enough to keep the crews alive but not enough to pose any threat to the planet below. Back on Earth, Dr. Amy Rodriguez was making discoveries that changed everything humanity thought they knew about the galaxy. The predecessor artifacts had revealed historical records showing that the current Galactic Alliance was built on lies and suppression of technological advancement. The Alliance has been deliberately holding back younger species, Amy reported to Earth Command. They've been preventing technological development to maintain their own power structure. Every time a species gets close to breakthrough discoveries, the Alliance intervenes to stop them. Commander Pete Williams led the human diplomatic mission that was hastily assembled as news of the galactic crisis spread. His orders were simple: find out what Jake Morrison had stumbled into and try to prevent an interstellar war that humanity could not possibly win. "The timing can't be coincidental," Pete told his team as their ship approached the Forbidden World. "Jake lands on that planet and suddenly alien technology all over the galaxy starts activating. There's a connection we're not seeing." On the planet's surface, Jake was experiencing visions that showed him the true history of the galaxy. The predecessors had not vanished mysteriously. They had been forced to transcend physical existence to escape the cycle of stagnation that trapped every advanced civilization. They had designed their technology as a test, waiting for a species that could break free from the patterns that had doomed so many others. The crystal formations around Jake's ship began projecting holographic displays showing him the current state of the galaxy. Species after species had achieved great technological heights only to become trapped in rigid social structures that prevented further growth. The Galactic Alliance maintained peace through control, ensuring that no species could challenge the established order. Your species is different, the voices explained. Humans question authority, challenge traditions, and adapt to change rather than resist it. These traits make you dangerous to the current order, but essential for galactic evolution. Admiral Zethkri managed to restore basic communication systems and contacted the other fleet commanders. General Vormath of the militant Krextai was demanding immediate nuclear bombardment of the planet, regardless of the consequences. Wisnav of the philosophical Anthari argued for patience and negotiation. The human must be eliminated before this contamination spreads further, General Vormath declared through the communication link. If we cannot use our weapons, we will land troops and take him by force. But when Krextai landing craft attempted to approach the planet, they found themselves unable to penetrate the atmosphere. An invisible barrier surrounded the world, allowing only Jake's ship to remain on the surface. The predecessor technology was actively protecting him from any interference. Captain Lisa Chen arrived with the human diplomatic mission just as tensions reached their breaking point. Her ship easily passed through the barrier that had stopped the alien forces, proving that the predecessor technology was indeed responding specifically to human presence. This is unprecedented, Counselor Mirthak observed. The Nexus world is treating humans as if they have legitimate authority here. The implications are staggering. Pete Williams managed to establish communication with both Jake on the planet and Admiral Zethkri in orbit. The three-way conversation that followed would change the course of galactic history forever. Captain Morrison, Pete said, the entire galaxy is watching what happens here. Your presence on that planet has activated technology that's been dormant for millennia. Can you explain what's happening down there? Jake looked out at the crystal spires that now covered the landscape as far as he could see. The predecessors left all of this for humanity. They've been waiting for us specifically. This technology, this power, it's meant to be ours. But it comes with a test. Admiral Zethkri's voice carried barely controlled panic. The human species has existed for mere thousands of years. You cannot possibly be ready for predecessor technology. It would be like giving stellar engineering tools to primitive children. Maybe that's exactly what the galaxy needs, Jake replied. You've all become so afraid of change that you've stopped growing entirely. The predecessors saw this pattern in every advanced civilization. They designed their legacy to break the cycle. Dr. Rodriguez had continued analyzing the historical data from the artifacts, and her discoveries supported Jake's claims. Evidence showed that every member species of the Galactic Alliance had once been as dynamic and exploratory as humanity, only to gradually become more conservative and risk-averse as they gained power and influence. The crisis deepened as more predecessor technology activated across the galaxy in response to the growing human presence around the Forbidden World. Ancient jump gates opened new travel routes that bypassed Alliance checkpoints. Automated manufacturing systems began producing advanced technology and offering it freely to any species willing to accept it. The very foundations of galactic civilization are crumbling, General Vormath warned. If we cannot stop this human contamination chaos will consume everything we have built. But Wisnav saw things differently. Perhaps what we have built deserves to be consumed. We have maintained order at the cost of progress, peace at the price of stagnation. This human may represent the change we have been too afraid to embrace. As the standoff continued, Jake felt the weight of an entire galaxy's future resting on his shoulders. The crystal formations were showing him three possible paths forward, each with profound consequences for every species in known space. The choice he made would determine whether humanity became the galaxy's salvation or its destruction. The predecessor voices grew clearer as Jake prepared to make the most important decision in human history. The test was not just about technology or power. It was about whether humanity could resist the same temptations that had trapped every other advanced species in cycles of fear and control. The crystal spires around Jake's ship began to glow with new intensity, as three distinct pathways appeared in his mind, each one leading to a radically different future for humanity and the galaxy. The predecessor consciousness spoke directly to him now, no longer using whispered voices but communicating in pure thought and emotion. The test reaches its conclusion, Jake Morrison of Earth, the consciousness said. 3 paths lie before your species. Choose wisely, for this decision cannot be undone. The first path showed humanity integrating peacefully with the existing galactic alliance. Humans would join the council as junior members, gradually earning respect through cooperation and patience. The predecessor technology would be shared slowly, carefully controlled to prevent disruption of the established order. It was the safe choice, the diplomatic solution that would avoid conflict. The second path revealed humanity using predecessor technology to dominate the galaxy. Human fleets equipped with impossible weapons would sweep aside all resistance. Alien species would serve human interests or face extinction. It was the path of conquest, appealing to humanity's darker impulses but ultimately leading to the same stagnation that had trapped every other dominant species. The third path was transcendence, following the predecessors beyond physical existence into realms of pure consciousness and energy. Humanity would leave behind their bodies and their conflicts, joining the predecessors in a state of perfect understanding and limitless power. But this path meant abandoning the physical galaxy to its fate. As Jake contemplated these visions, something unprecedented began happening across human space. Every human being in the galaxy started receiving the same images, the same choice. The predecessor technology was not asking one man to decide for his entire species. It was asking every individual human to participate in the decision. Dr. Amy Rodriguez felt her mind filled with visions as she worked in her laboratory on Earth. Around her, every member of her research team experienced the same phenomenon. Across the planet, in cities and farms and space stations, 7 billion humans suddenly found themselves connected to a galactic decision that would reshape the universe. "This is impossible," Amy whispered as she realized what was happening. "It's asking all of us to vote. Every single human being is being given the choice." Captain Lisa Chen experienced the visions while orbiting the Forbidden World with the diplomatic mission. Commander Pete Williams felt his consciousness expand to encompass possibilities he had never imagined. Even children playing in schoolyards on distant colonies found themselves understanding concepts beyond their years as the predecessor consciousness shared its knowledge with every human mind. The alien fleet watching from orbit detected massive energy spikes across all of human space as the voting process began. Admiral Zethkri stared at her instruments in amazement as her sensors registered simultaneous neural activity spikes from billions of human brains. "They're all connected," she reported to the other fleet commanders. "Every human in the galaxy is participating in some kind of collective decision-making process. I've never seen anything like it." General Vormath of the Krextai responded with predictable aggression. "This proves they're too dangerous to be allowed to survive. No species should have the power to link minds across interstellar distances. We must destroy them before this infection spreads." But Wyzenav of the Anthari was fascinated rather than frightened. "For the first time in recorded history, we are witnessing true democracy on a galactic scale. Each individual voice carries equal weight in a decision that affects their entire species. It is remarkable." Back on Earth, the global communication network struggled to handle the unprecedented traffic as humans began discussing their choice. The debate was unlike anything in human history, with philosophical arguments about the nature of power, responsibility, and humanity's place in the cosmos being held simultaneously in millions of languages and locations. Some argued for integration, believing that cooperation with existing galactic powers was the only way to ensure human survival. Others pushed for domination, claiming that humanity's unique gifts gave them the right to rule. A growing number supported transcendence, viewing it as the ultimate evolution of human consciousness. Jake felt the weight of 7 billion voices as the global debate raged through the predecessor communication network. He could sense the hopes and fears of his entire species, from elderly philosophers on Earth to young miners on the outer colonies. The diversity of human thought and experience flowed through him like a river of consciousness. "Your species amazes us," the predecessor consciousness admitted. "In all our observations of galactic civilizations, we have never encountered one that approaches such momentous decisions through collective debate and individual choice. Most species defer to the judgment of their leaders or follow ancient traditions without question. The voting process continued for days as humans across the galaxy deliberated. Unlike the rigid hierarchies of alien civilizations, humanity had no single authority figure who could make the decision for everyone. Even Earth's government could only advise and facilitate discussion. The choice belonged to every individual human. Dr. Rodriguez found herself at the center of Earth's scientific community as researchers tried to understand the implications of each path. The integration option would mean slower technological advancement, but greater stability. Domination offered unlimited power, but at the cost of becoming the very thing humanity had always fought against. Transcendence promised ultimate enlightenment but required abandoning their physical existence. We're not just choosing for ourselves, Amy told the assembled scientists. We're choosing for every future human who will ever be born. The responsibility is overwhelming. Captain Lisa Chen opened communication channels with the alien fleet, trying to explain humanity's decision-making process to species that had never experienced anything like it. The concept of individual agency and species-level decisions was so foreign to most aliens that they struggled to understand what was happening. Each human gets to vote? Admiral Zethkri asked in confusion. Even the youngest and least experienced? How do you prevent chaos and poor decisions? We don't, Pete Williams replied honestly. We trust that collective wisdom will emerge from the debate. It's messy and sometimes inefficient, but it's also what makes us human. As the voting continued, patterns began to emerge in the global discussion. Younger humans tended to favor transcendence, drawn by the promise of unlimited growth and exploration. Older generations leaned toward integration, preferring stability and gradual progress. Those who had experienced conflict or oppression often supported domination as a way to ensure humanity would never be vulnerable again. Jake watched the debates, through his connection to the predecessor network, marveling at the complexity and depth of human reasoning. Arguments that began as simple preferences evolved into sophisticated philosophical frameworks. Religious leaders debated the spiritual implications of transcendence. Military commanders weighed the strategic advantages of each option. Artists and writers explored the cultural consequences of humanity's choice. The alien observers grew increasingly nervous as they realized the scope of what they were witnessing. The predecessor technology was not just offering humanity a choice, it was fundamentally changing how decisions were made on a galactic scale. If other species adopted similar democratic approaches to major decisions, the existing power structures that had maintained order for millennia would crumble. The humans are not just choosing their own path, Counselor Mirthak observed with growing alarm. They are demonstrating an entirely different way of approaching cosmic responsibility. Other species will see this and begin questioning why they allow small groups of leaders to make decisions that affect everyone. As the vote entered its final phase, Jake felt the collective consciousness of humanity beginning to converge on a decision. But the choice they were making surprised everyone, including the predecessors themselves. Humanity was not simply selecting one of the three offered paths, they were creating a fourth option that no one had considered possible. The moment the final human votes were counted, every crystal formation on the forbidden planet erupted in brilliant light that could be seen from orbit. Jake felt the collective decision of his species flowing through him like electricity, and he smiled as he realized what humanity had chosen. They had rejected all three offered paths and created something entirely new. We choose integration, Jake announced to the assembled alien fleet through the communication network. But not as junior partners in your existing system. We propose to rebuild galactic civilization from the ground up, with democratic participation from every species willing to join us. The predecessor consciousness expressed something that felt like surprise and approval. Your species continues to exceed our expectations. Rather than accepting the structures we presented, you have chosen to create new ones. This is precisely the kind of thinking that has been missing from galactic evolution. Admiral Zethkri's response came through static-filled communications as her ship's system struggled to function near the awakened planet. You cannot simply remake the galactic order. The Alliance has maintained peace for thousands of years. What you propose would lead to chaos. The peace you've maintained is the peace of stagnation, Pete Williams replied from his diplomatic vessel. Our analysis of your historical records shows that technological and cultural advancement has slowed to almost nothing under Alliance rule. You've prevented war by preventing growth. Dr. Amy Rodriguez had spent the days of human deliberation analyzing every piece of data the predecessor artifacts had provided about galactic civilization. Her findings supported humanity's decision to reject the existing order. Every member species of the Alliance had once been as dynamic and innovative as humans, only to gradually become more conservative and risk-averse as they gained influence in the galactic government. The pattern repeats with every civilization, Amy explained in her report to Earth Command. Species start out exploratory and adaptable, but as they gain power in the Alliance structure, they become invested in maintaining the status quo. The system is designed to prevent change, not promote it. The crystal formations around Jake's ship began to transform, growing into elaborate structures that served as both communication arrays and manufacturing facilities. The predecessor technology was adapting to humanity's chosen path, creating the infrastructure needed to implement their vision of democratic galactic governance. The Nexus world will serve as neutral ground, the predecessor consciousness explained. To Jake. A place where representatives from any species can come to access our knowledge and technology, but only under the principles your species has established. The transformation was not limited to the Forbidden Planet. Across human space, the predecessor artifacts began constructing similar facilities on every world where humans had established colonies. These installations would serve as embassies for the new galactic order, offering advanced technology and knowledge to any species willing to participate in democratic decision-making. Captain Lisa Chen received the first alien delegation to accept humanity's proposal. Wisnav of the Onthari arrived with a small fleet, his species having decided to abandon the restrictive alliance in favor of humanity's more open approach to galactic governance. Your democratic principles intrigue us, Wisnav explained during the first interspecies assembly held on the Nexus world. For too long, our civilization has been guided by the same philosophical frameworks our ancestors developed millennia ago. Perhaps it is time for new ideas. The Onthari were followed by several smaller species that had been marginalized under the Alliance system. The Veltar traders brought their expertise in interstellar commerce. The Hmong scientists offered their advanced understanding of stellar engineering. The Quillen artists shared their mastery of consciousness manipulation techniques, but not all species embraced the change. General Vormath led a faction of Alliance members who viewed humanity's proposals as an existential threat to galactic stability. The Krextai military began fortifying their territory, preparing for what they saw as an inevitable war against human expansion. The humans speak of democracy and freedom, Vormath declared at the Emergency Alliance session, but what they offer is chaos and destruction of everything we have built. We must resist this infection before it spreads beyond containment. Jake found himself at the center of the new galactic order as the first human ambassador to the predecessor. Consciousness. The role required him to remain on the Nexus world, serving as a living bridge between humanity and the transcendent beings who had left their legacy for the galaxy to inherit. The position comes with great responsibility, the predecessor consciousness warned him. You will experience the thoughts and emotions of every species that seeks to access our knowledge. The weight of their hopes and fears will become part of you. Jake accepted the role gladly, understanding that his accidental trespass on the Forbidden World had been the first step in a journey that would reshape the entire galaxy. The crystal formations around his ship had grown into a vast complex that served as both his home and the heart of the new galactic government. Dr. Rodriguez established the Joint Research Initiative, bringing together scientists from multiple species to study and develop predecessor technology. The partnerships proved remarkably productive, with human creativity combining with alien expertise to produce innovations that benefited everyone involved. We're making discoveries in months that would have taken decades under the old system, Amy reported to the expanding network of participating species. When you combine human adaptability with Onthari philosophy, Veltar engineering, and Quillen consciousness techniques, the results are extraordinary. The new Galactic Assembly met regularly on the Nexus world, with representatives from each participating species having equal voice in decisions that affected them all. The democratic process was messy and sometimes chaotic, but it produced solutions that no single species could have developed alone. Pete Williams became the first director of interspecies relations, tasked with encouraging more alliance members to join the new system. His approach was patient and non-threatening, offering benefits rather than making demands. "We're not trying to conquer anyone," Pete explained to hesitant species representatives. "We're offering partnership in building something better than what currently exists. The choice is always yours to make." Some alliance members remained hostile to the changes, but others began to see the advantages of the new system. The rapid technological advancement achieved through democratic cooperation was impossible to ignore. Species that joined the human-led coalition gained access to innovations that would have taken centuries to develop independently. The Nexus world itself became a symbol of the new galactic order. Where once it had been a forbidden zone that no one dared approach, it was now a thriving center of interspecies cooperation and learning. The crystal formations provided translation services, cultural education, and technological training to any being willing to embrace the principles of democratic participation. Jake often walked through the crystalline gardens that had grown around his original landing site, reflecting on how his emergency landing had led to such momentous changes. The planet responded to his presence by creating beautiful formations that told the story of galactic transformation through living art. "You have exceeded even our most optimistic projections," the predecessor consciousness told him during one of their regular conversations. "Your species has not only avoided the traps that claimed so many others, but has created new paths that we ourselves never considered." The old Galactic Alliance continued to exist, but its influence waned as more species chose to participate in the democratic alternative. The rigid hierarchies that had maintained order through fear and control could not compete with a system that promoted growth through cooperation and shared decision-making. Captain Lisa Chen commanded the first joint species exploration mission launched from the Nexus world. Her crew included humans, Anthari, Veltar, and Quillen working together to explore previously unknown regions of the galaxy. The mission represented everything the new galactic order stood for: cooperation, exploration, and shared discovery. As the first year of the new system concluded, Jake stood in the observation deck of the great crystal spire that had grown from his original landing site. Ships from dozens of species came and went from the planet below, their crews working together on projects that would have been impossible under the old Alliance restrictions. The human who had stepped on a forbidden world had indeed changed the course of galactic history forever. But the change had not come through conquest or domination. It had come through the radical idea that every species, regardless of size or technological advancement, deserved a voice in shaping their shared future. The galaxy was entering a new age of unprecedented cooperation and discovery, guided by democratic principles that valued growth over stability and exploration over security. The predecessor's legacy was finally in the hands of a species capable of using it wisely, not just for their own benefit, but for the betterment of all galactic civilization.